Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. As the man searches the garden for Her Highness, who sits comfortably on the grass, engrossed in a book, with no care in the world, he demands to know her whereabouts. Pitying the poor man, she decides that is enough trouble for him, and she should go out now. When she calls out to him, he turns to look in her direction. He then asks her what has she been doing here. With a smile on her face, Her Highness warns him that as the Empire Sword, he should not be revealing his back so easily. He tells her he was worried that she might have gone to the West Palace. She pouts, saying she wouldn't want to go to a haunted place. Looking somewhat embarrassed, she tells him not to worry so much, and she admits she is the stupid princess. But he cuts her off, asking why she keeps talking about her like that. He then reminds her it is her birthday tomorrow. She clarifies she wasn't blaming him or anything. He's the one who gave her this wonderful life. However, she is aware she's a princess who cannot use the imperial grace, and she understands why the nobles sneer at her. All members of the imperial family can use the imperial grace, but not her. Fortunately, her inability did not affect the sweet attitude of her brother and sister, and the sweetest of all, Sir Bellerophon, who is the person who brought her here. She continues with her self-deprecating remarks that she is terrible with magic. He wants her not to mind their comments. She muses perhaps now is the time for her to be honest with her feelings. Out of the blue, she asks him what he would think of her as his partner. When he doesn't reply, stunned into silence, she quickly blurts out she's not joking. After a pause, he sighs deeply and asks how he can dare. She counters, he does not have a fiancé. She wonders if she is not his type. Of course, she admits to herself she's not as talented, as gorgeous as her sister Lilia, but she thought she was at least cute. She wonders if he's just being humble, or this is a polite rejection. She convinces herself that he is saying no. She asks if he won't dance with her at the birthday ball if she asks him out. She requests him to at least dance with her at the birthday ball. He kneels in front of her and promises her to do so. About 20 years ago, the youngest princess of Arcadia disappeared immediately after birth. As soon as the crown Prince Larium ascended the throne, he searched the entire country to find his missing sister, and he did. That is the story of the commoner Bridget, her, or rather the Princess of Miracle, Lycoris. However, to the arrogant nobles, she was nothing but an incredibly lucky commoner. They whisper murmurs to each other, questioning if she truly is the youngest princess. However, they are not sure due to the color of her hair and eyes are completely different from those of the imperial family. Furthermore, they also heard that the spell caused on her at the time of the abduction was so powerful that she still has to recover her true appearance. The princess wonders if it is really a good idea to hold a ball in this situation. Someone calls her name, snapping her out of her thoughts. She asks why she's standing here. She should have waited for her. Lycoris quickly greets her, referring to her as Her Highness, but then corrects herself and calls her sister by name. Lilia notices she doesn't look happy. She reminds her this ball is held for her. Lycoris reveals her sister serves the goddess with her exceptional magical skills. She is literally the closest human being to the goddess. Suddenly, her older brother the king intervenes as well, wanting to know if she doesn't feel well. He can see she doesn't look well and suggests she get some rest in her room. Lycoris reveals he is a cold emperor, but a caring brother to her. She assures them she was completely fine this morning, and it will go away soon after all. The ball is to celebrate her birthday. They both tell her the ball is pointless if she's forcing herself to stay. Her sister agrees with the king and assures her they will both take care of it. Despite her insistence to stay, they do not listen to her and send her forcefully back to her room to rest. She flops down on her bed. She groans in this disappointment because she did not have the chance to talk to Bellerophon, and she was to have her first dance with him. Though she admits her fever is also getting worse. She thinks about Lilia and Larium. What she truly wanted with them was a small birthday party between the three of them, having a picnic somewhere in the garden, putting candles on her favorite lemon cake and getting to know each other like a real family. Feeling nauseous yet drifting into sleep, she contemplates to herself. If this is a dream, she wishes it never ends. Later, Lilia observes her sister's restless slumber, and when she stirs, she declares she is awakened. As Lycoris wonders in confusion, what is this? Why she is unable to speak or move, she trembles, while her siblings stand over her. The king remarks that this is precisely why they should have taken care of her sooner, to which Lilia confesses that she hadn't thought the spell would break today. Lilia kneels down in front of her and lets her know the color of her eyes has also changed. Now no one will doubt that they are sisters. She mocks her, calling her a poor girl and asking her if she would feel better if she finds out why she is dying. She states it is because if the goddess takes the child holding the evil dragon inside, she bestows her grace upon them again. She further adds someone must do this and her body and soul would reinforce their power. Lilia hopes she had a wonderful time as a princess over the past year and tells her this could have been much worse if she died as a commoner. Finally, she tells her it's for the sake of the empire and Omlas, expressing gratitude before abruptly pushing her off the cliff's edge, sending her tumbling into the abyss. Her family found her only to offer her as a sacrifice, as the prey to the goddess. As she continues to fall into the abyss, she hears a deep voice declaring she still hasn't lost her mind. She asks who is it. A very big dragon materializes in front of her. It introduces herself as Nidher, the dragon of this generation sealed within her. He lets her know with the broken body, she cannot hold on to her mind and soul, and she will completely cease to exist soon. He states he has desperately longed for the death of the goddess and the Omlas, so he shall turn back the time to when her body was undamaged. This catches her off guard as she wasn't expecting him to be her savior. He orders her to use his power, and then they shall seek vengeance against the Omlas together. Slowly opening her blurred eyes, she raises her hand, wiggling her fingers in astonishment. With a sudden start, she jumps in her bed, realizing her hands are now clean. Looking around, she finds herself in the familiar surroundings of the house she used to live in before moving to the palace. She checks the date. It is February, a month before her birthday. She realizes that Dragon has actually saved her. Someone calls out her name, causing her to whip her head in surprise towards the source of the voice. On the table sits a lizard-like creature, yet she hasn't noticed it yet. Puzzled, she wonders who said that. As there is no one in the house, the lizard-like creature is actually a dragon, who tells her it is him, Nidher. She is incredulous at the idea of this lizard being anything more. Angry, he tells her it is because of her. The tiny dragon throws a tantrum, unable to believe that all she could do with his immense power was create a lizard. He thought he knew about her poor magic skills, but this is much worse. She asks him if he's really Nidher and if she's really in the past. He says of course, yes. He has made it clear already that he will turn back time so they can avenge themselves. However, he then adds, but with her magical skills this would be harder than he thought. She suddenly remembers right the deal was to seek revenge in exchange for turning back the time. However, she seems hesitant for some reason. 3 weeks later, in the market, Lycoris goes to the lady who gives her some coins and tells her it is her money for today's work and thanks her for cleaning the snow. Her gaze then falls on the lizard on her shoulder, and she asks if that is her pet lizard, as she always carries him around. Nidher pouts, somehow looking offended by being called a lizard. The dragon demands why she's wasting her time when she should be planning their revenge. She glares at him, as she told him many times to forget about the revenge. She admits to herself she is furious as well. She just wants to yell at them and ask why they treated her nicely if they were to kill her eventually. But she believes, realistically, that revenge is impossible. Her power was much weaker than theirs, even as a princess, and now that she is back to Bridget, the poor commoner, it would be worse. She thinks to herself the only spell she's good at is the small-scale explosion spell. If she barges into the palace for revenge, it is likely that they arrest her and kill her all over again. More importantly, she doesn't wish to die. She then diverts her attention back to the lady who has observed over the few days her magic seems to have improved. She suggests why she doesn't head to the capital. She heard she can be an official sorceress at the palace. Another lady who has joined them agrees and tells her it will also be much warmer there. The dragon wiggles in emphasis, affirming they are correct, causing her to nervously smile. With hardened eyes, the dragon commands her, stating firmly that she is to go to the palace. She thinks in her previous life Bellerophon came right before her 20th birthday. If she stays here, he might find her again. That's why she should leave as they advised. The women are now talking to each other. One of them points out they need a lot of money to get there, and as they know each other's finances, she cannot afford that. She thinks about the kingdom of Ilium and admits she dreamed of going there when she was young. She suddenly rises up with a new determination shining in her eyes. She thinks it is a miracle that she was given a second chance to live, and she cannot throw it away just because of some revenge that is sure to fail. This time she wishes to be safe and happy. She announces she has made her decision. It didn't take her long to depart from the village. During the carriage ride, her eyes held a sadness within them. Recollecting the moment when the lady and others gave her the shawl, the lady said it was a farewell gift from all of them. She thought they did not have enough money. She could only imagine what they went through to get this. A tear trickled down her face. The dragon then asked her where they were headed. She revealed they would stop by the Lurad district on the outskirts. She needed to make money first. Her whole life she had not left that village, except for the 1 year in the palace. She realized her new life has actually begun, but she is not sure where to start. She steps out of the carriage, determined to find a job. She enters a hotel and asks the receptionist if there's a room available. He begins to reply, then trails off, his gaze fixed on her hair. Pointing out the change, he mentions her hair, leaving her puzzled. Suddenly, her hair starts turning red, prompting a surge of panic within her. Gripping her hair in sudden fear, she begins to tremble uncontrollably. She suddenly dashes towards a room, hastily shutting the door behind her. Her strength fails her, and she collapses to the ground, sitting there in shock. She forgot that today was her birthday. She completely lost track of time coming here. In her previous life, the world about her hair color change was what led them to find her, she thinks. Luckily, no one saw this beside him, and she managed to get away with it. This time, other people won't know it. Nidher wonders out aloud how he did not know about such a strong transformation spell and asks her who did this. She replies she doesn't know, probably the kidnapper. He then asks if the change is permanent. She fiddles with her hair as she replies no, it will turn out brown again tomorrow. That's what happened in her previous life. He concludes it must have malfunctioned before being lifted completely. This catches her attention. She pauses, letting his words sink. He tells her it makes sense. A spell rarely lasts for 20 years. She remembers Lilia said the same thing. She realizes without this spell, it would be even harder to hide, which means she would have to head south before her next birthday. She clenches her fist as she thinks only 1 year left until she is financially ready to free this country. She knows she must find a job now. A few days later, she groans in frustration as she's unable to find a job. She did not know the Imperial Certificate was mandatory. The Imperial Certificate is issued to those who pass the infamously stringent evaluation process. It is an identification for sorcerers that officially permits their economic activities, and there is no way she can receive the certificate without revealing her identity. The receptionist asks her if she did not have luck again. She replies yes. He then asks her if she has been to the Lofty racetrack. She tells him she doesn't do gambling, but he corrects her that he did not mean gambling. That place is run by a Lofty business. If she ends up picking the winner 3 times in a row, they will hire her. She asks him if there is any normal way to contact them. He replies he is not sure and leaves abruptly when is called by another customer. Nidher asks her will she do it. However, she is uncomfortable with gambling, so she decides to look harder for something else. A few days later, In the market, she successfully announces the winner 3 times in a row. People talk to each other in disbelief that she keeps winning again, and they believe this is impossible as she only bets on horses with a low winning rate. The dragon is dazed as he demands to know what she do. Yes, she used his power to create warm air around the horses she picked. She heard that when horses begin molting, they use more energy on maintaining their body temperature, which reduces their speed, so she helped them run without wasting their energy. She thought this would work well in this chilly weather, and she was right. She then thinks, why isn't anybody coming? How many more rounds does she need to win? Remus is watching the horse race from the VIP suite on the 5th floor. He calls out to Dagmar and lets him know a sorcerer sneaked into the racetrack. Dagmar looks surprised because they have checked everyone's identification. Remus believes the sorcerer either lied or is illegal without the certificate. Dagmar asks, hasn't Hecate put up a magical barrier before leaving? However, Ray announces, but he or she managed to do something through that barrier. Dagmar gazes at the horses and thinks none of the horses are hurt, and the winning horse is not under a hallucination spell either. He thinks doing this repeatedly means the sorcerer is trying to send a message. Ray hopes this sorcerer is not here because of that stupid rumor about recruiting. Even a fool would not believe that. He then instructs Dagmar to check all the names who bet on the winning horses so far and bring this swindler to him. Dagmar, however, is worried about his condition and asks if today he will be all right. He remarks, "What about his condition? He's always the same." He then smirks, declaring this is going to be fun. Lycoris won 6 times, but no one came. She realizes it must have been a rumor. As Lycoris is lost in her thoughts, she walks slowly. The dragon glances at his shoulder and realizes someone is following them. He then tells her they have a tail, so she should walk faster. Just as she turns around to look, someone swiftly stomps towards her and grabs her arm roughly, squeezing her wrist tightly. With a creepy demeanor, the man declares that he has been watching her and finds what she did back there impressive. He demands to know how she accomplished it. He states all of her horses won, even the ones that could never possibly win. She looks shocked. Nidor believes this human must have done something like her. He demands again to say who she is working for. He raises his hand to strike her, questioning how dare she trick him. At that moment, a person rushes to his side and delivers a sharp kick to his neck, causing him to tumble to the ground. Dagmar extends his hand towards her and asks if she's all right. She places her hand on his and thanks him. He states that was dangerous Miss Bridget. She asks him how does he know her name. He replies they checked the name she wrote before entering. He says at first they suspected beginner's luck, but 6 wins basically screamed for their attention. Her whole face brightens as she thinks the rumor was true. Dagmar asks her if she's aware of the consequences of fraud in the racetrack. Oblivious to the underhanded threat, she replies yes. Even Dagmar looks confused. She expresses happily that she came to apply for a job, and she passed her first exam, did not she? For a moment, he looks completely clueless. But when he manages to speak, he tells her she must have heard an old rumor. This is not how they hire people. There's a tense moment of pause. The other person who saved her says, in other words, she's just a fraud. Dagmar then informs her their master has asked for her. So how about she explained for herself? She thinks to herself she is doomed. She complies easily and leaves with them. The door creaks open and she enters hesitantly. Ray turns to her and smirks, remarking this is the fearless sorceress who cheated in his racetrack. She realizes he is the owner of this business. He tells her to take a seat. She thinks this is her first time seeing him, but he looks oddly familiar. She peeks at him under her lashes, those imposing graceful movements, and those grayish-blue eyes the color of the winter sky. She concludes he is definitely not someone who can be easily forgotten. She tries to recall where she had seen him before. Suddenly she blurts out, "Have they met somewhere?" He snorts, asking if she's making a move and remarks that swindlers these days are quite daring. She freaks out and clarifies. No, she wasn't making a move. She then states she did not intentionally cheat. There seems to be a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, he repeats. She replies yes, and lets him know she heard that if she bets on the winner 3 times in a row, they will hire her. She urgently needs a job at the moment. He rolls his eyes, stating he never thought anyone would still believe such nonsense. She sighs deeply and apologizes that she disrupted the race by believing a false rumor. She also promises she will return all the prize money. She clenches the fabric of her dress before she blurts out, "Is there any way she can work here?" She doesn't mind temporary positions. She reveals she's a commoner, but she's a sorceress. He sips his tea as he states their sorcerer happens to be away. However, he then asks, "But why here? There must be a lot of businesses looking to hire someone." She admits that, to be honest, she has been having a hard time because she doesn't have the Imperial certificate, and that is not something she can recover immediately. There's a tense moment of silence before he murmurs understood, and to compensate for the earlier incident, he will see what she is capable of. She states that means but trails off. He interjects that she will have a test. He instructs her to go to the ranch with one of his people, and she would be given a task there. She beams at him and expresses her gratitude. He then stares at her for some, and then out of the blue offers her some woundry. She replies no, she appreciates the offer, but she will take off right away. Just as the door shuts, the girl from earlier who saved Lycoris asks him, is he actually going to hire that girl? She admits Hecate would not return for the time being, but they don't need a replacement. He assures her he is not hiding her. She then questions, then why test her? Dagmar replies on Rai's behalf that Lady knew the woundry courtesy and the proper way to reject it. Canna is confused and remarks isn't woundry just an expensive liquor. She rejected it. So what? He tells her this is the capital's nobles' way of saying they better leave. Woundry is one of the most rare liquor. Offering it implies, do they seriously want to taste the alcohol they work so hard to earn? Shame on them, they should go and drink at their home. It is how nobles ask their guests to leave. Canna states didn't she say she is a commoner, so how did he find out? Rai claims he found out the moment she entered. Her walk, her posture, everything about her suggested that she knew the etiquette. He further adds she may be dressed as a commoner, but her attitude was not of a debutante. He wonders if it is because she looked oddly out of space, but he had a feeling he had seen her before. He thinks to himself, he scoffed at her remark before, but in truth, the moment he saw her, it felt like someone pulled the thread in his brain hard. Something more powerful than oddness, a sensation that penetrates his heart. He murmurs to himself, let's see whether she's a swindler or a sorcerer with secrets. On her way on the horse, she asks her guide, Russell, how difficult will the test be? Roussel replies he is not sure as his test was quite simple. He just had to kill a demon. She gulps nervously at his definition of simple. She then glances around at the forest and realizes a huge accident happened here in her previous life. She tries to recall when exactly that was. They arrive at their destination. Russell hands over a paper to him and informs her this is her task. Her task is to clean the stable in 3 hours. She asks Russell if they have a shower, but he lets her know they recently emptied everything. She is shocked they are making her clean this enormous place without any tools. She decides to bring water from the river, however. It is still frozen, so she gets an idea to break it with magic. An idea lights in her mind, and she believes this might work. In her first life, she could barely start a small fire with magic. Now she can put her powers in pebbles and induce an explosion. She places those pebbles that have her powers all around the stable. Russell then asks her when she is going to start cleaning. Lycoris instructs him to run. Then all the pebbles catch fire, and water splashes onto them spontaneously. The stable cleans itself by magic. Russell, impressed by her abilities, congratulates her. He believes this was worth dealing with that man in the back seat and his master, and if he tells him about this, she will be hired in no time. Suddenly, Lycoris' cheerful demeanor shifts. She looks nervous as she asks him how knows about the man in the back seat. In return, he smiles at her. She thinks to herself, to know about the attack, Roussel should have been watching her the whole time. However, she cannot find a suitable reason for why he would do that when he saw her for the first time today. Her demeanor no longer relaxed around him. Her guard is up as she glares at him, while the dragon reminds her he is with that man. Rosal mocks that his boss has ordered him to stick to the business, so this is not good. He says if he lets her return, he will be caught. Suddenly, wolves that look starved materialize in front of her. He tells her not to try to resist because it won't work. She begins to run, with them closely following on her heels. She thinks the bone-cracking noise blurs her sense of reality. She pants heavily, exerting all her strength as she runs as fast as she can. She realizes it is just like the sound she heard before she died. She cannot stop thinking of that moment. She suddenly trips and falls face down onto the ground. She asks for Nidher to help her, who looks at her from a distance. However, he surprises everyone by saying why must he? He admits she intrigues him. However, she doesn't know how to use his power properly, and she refuses to seek revenge together with him. He declares he should rather see her die and wait for the next human to hold him within. Her eyes well up, and she looks furious and sad simultaneously. She tries to say something, but no words come out. The dragon remarks what a pity, and then turns to leave. He doesn't even look behind once, betraying her so cruelly. She tries to remind herself there is no time to be shocked, and she should get out of here now. Suddenly, the footsteps of the wolves reach her ears. She looks behind to find them crashing into her. She tries to push them off. Suddenly, she hears the sound of slashing. Looking up in surprise, she sees Rai right there, dealing with the wolves effortlessly. He yanks her up and tells her to run this way. Kana and the others will help her. When she looks hesitant to leave him, he orders more harshly, now. At that she runs. She thinks to herself he cannot kill all those demons alone. Where is Kana? She wants to find her and tell her where he is. On her way, she encounters another wolf. She falls onto the ground, thinking no way, and wonders how many demons he has summoned. She shields her face with her arms, bracing herself for the attack. Suddenly, a sound reaches her ears. Slowly, she opens her eyes to see the wolf lying dead, a sword protruding from its body. She wonders if Rai is already here, but another voice interrupts her thoughts, asking if she's all right. Her whole body stiffens. She tries to convince herself this cannot be. Her savior approaches her, extending his hand towards her. He assures her she is safe now. He offers to help her get up. Suddenly, the vision of him on his knees, promising her that he would dance with her, floods her mind. She trembles uncontrollably. It is Bellerophon. She thinks he is the reason she left the village, so now why he is here. When she doesn't bother taking his hand, he asks her if everything is okay. Is she hurt? Ray calls out to her, rushing to her side. He swiftly swoops her behind him, fixing his gaze on Bellerophon. He demands to know what he is doing on his estate. He replies this is the border area and that demons can be cleared jointly. Lycoris is surprised at how Ray is speaking to him, because a mere merchant cannot speak like that to one of the highest nobles. She wonders if they know each other. Ray diverts her attention towards her and exclaims her shoulder is bleeding. He calls for Dagmar, who rushes to him. He then instructs her to follow him so that he would take care of the wound. Just as she turns to leave, she is stopped by Bellerophon, who offers her a handkerchief. He suggests she better add pressure to stop the bleeding. She looks reluctant but thanks him anyway. After both the men are left alone, Bellerophon requests Remus if they can talk. However, Ray cuts him off, telling him there's nothing left to talk about between them. And he also tells him not to call him Remus. He feels disgusted. He also adds it is unusual for him to come here around this time of the year. Wasn't he looking for some baby princess? He replies he thought his brother had been left alone for quite a while. This catches him off guard. He turns back to ask him why does he, however, he is cut off by him asking about the lady. Ray smirks, thinking if he's attracted to this woman, is he serious? Initially, he was planning to send her away after the treatment, but now he announces she would be one of them. He thinks if he can mess with him, he doesn't mind lying. In fact, he can do more. Bellerophon does not look pleased with the answer and asks him if he's going to make such a young lady do his work. He reminds him he himself had said his business was dangerous. Ray's eyes blaze with fury. His whole face tightened in anger as he curses him and tells him to think why he's doing this before he opens his stupid mouth. He turns his back on him and strides over. Bellerophon tells him to stop, but he doesn't listen. However, once again he stops when he tells him the palace would call him soon. He must attend this time. Ray cannot help but think he never listens, and he wonders if he still believes the relationship remains the same. Ray goes over to Canna, who is holding Russell captive by keeping her foot on his back, pinning him face down on the ground. Ray teases her that isn't she being too harsh. She presses her foot more firmly into his back and remarks that he should simply acknowledge that she did a good job. He strides over to him, yanks Russell upward by his collar. He states he knew that he came in here with an agenda, and he let him do his job, but not if he tries to use the racetrack to his own interest. Ray's blue eyes shine coldly as he asks him if the Emperor sent him or Princess Lilia.